Starting. Chemistry Art Integration Project by Aditya Verma. Solubility of salts. Solubility is the ability of a compound to dissolve in a solvent. Solubility of salt, potassium, sodium, ammonium. All salts of potassium, sodium and ammonium are soluble in water. For example, salts of potassium such as potassium nitrate, potassium chloride, potassium carbonate and potassium sulphate are all soluble in water. And salts of ammonium such as ammonium nitrate, ammonium chloride, ammonium carbonate, and ammonium sulphate are also soluble in water along with salts of sodium such as sodium nitrate, sodium chloride, sodium carbonate and sodium sulphate are also soluble in water. Solubility of salt, nitrate. All salts of nitrate are soluble in water. For example, salts of nitrate such as potassium nitrate, sodium nitrate, calcium nitrate, magnesium nitrate, aluminium nitrate are all soluble in water. Solubility of salt, sulphate. They are mostly soluble in water except lead sulphate, barium sulphate and calcium sulphate. For example, potassium sulphate, zinc sulphate, iron sulphate, tin sulphate and silver sulphate are soluble in water, whereas lead sulphate, barium sulphate and calcium sulphate are insoluble in water. Solubility of salt, carbonate. They are mostly insoluble in water except potassium carbonate, sodium carbonate and ammonium carbonate. For example, magnesium carbonate, calcium carbonate, zinc carbonate and iron carbonate are insoluble in water, whereas potassium carbonate, sodium carbonate, ammonium carbonate are soluble in water. Solubility of salt, oxide. They are mostly insoluble in water except potassium oxide and sodium oxide. For example, calcium oxide, zinc oxide, magnesium oxide and aluminium oxide are insoluble in water, whereas potassium oxide and sodium oxide are soluble in water. Solubility of salt, hydroxide. They are mostly insoluble in water except potassium hydroxide, sodium hydroxide and ammonium hydroxide. For example, calcium hydroxide, zinc hydroxide, iron hydroxide and lead hydroxide are insoluble in water, whereas potassium hydroxide, sodium hydroxide and ammonium hydroxide are soluble in water. Thank you for watching. Created by Aditya Verma. Hope you like it.